Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be talking about Riley's birth story. I know I just posted a vlog and I kind of talked about what all was happening in there, but towards the end things started happening and I didn't have a chance to pick up my camera, so I wanted to just have a video where I sit down and talk about everything that has happened. And I don't know if you can see this little orange bow down here, but I'm currently feeding Riley. I was about to sit down and start filming this, and she woke up and wanted to eat. So I will have to show her later in the video whenever she's done eating. Before we get on into the video, please make sure that you are subscribed to my channel and that you like this video. And yeah, let's go ahead and get right into it. So I'm actually going to start before the day she was even born. So before I even started getting checked by the doctor, I was already having like contractions and feeling uncomfortable and all of that stuff. From the very beginning, Matt had said that he thought that Riley was going to come early. And he kept saying around Valentine's Day. I feel like I started having like cramping and contractions here and there like the very beginning of February. I feel like I end up going for my 36-week appointment. That was the first time I got checked, and at that appointment he checked me and said that I was already 2 centimeters and I was halfway thinned and already lost my mucus plug. So he was super confident and kept joking and saying like, oh, we're gonna have a baby soon, and just kept on saying that whenever I do go into labor that it's probably gonna be fast because of how well I've already progressed at only 36 weeks. So fast forward a week, at 37 weeks, I go into my appointment and I'm still only 2 centimeters dilated, but I'm 75% effaced. And it was at this appointment that we went ahead and decided to set up an induction date. Like I said, I had already been having like contractions and all this stuff, and we had already decided that Matt's mom was going to come and watch Benjamin when we were in the hospital and take him to school and all of that. But it was just one of those things where whenever the doctor mentioned induction, we were like, yeah, that would be great because then we could plan for Benjamin. So like I said, I had been having contractions here and there before this, and there were even a couple of times where I actually was timing them because they were like consistent, and then a couple hours would go by and then they would just stop. Matt was super sure that she was going to come around Valentine's Day. So Valentine's Day came and went, and that is when we started to get really nervous. So as y'all know, we live in Texas, and not that long ago, we had the bad winter storms. The roads were bad. It was not safe to drive, and lots of people didn't have electricity and all of that stuff. And that was the week when I was cramping a lot. I had contractions. There were times when I legit felt her getting lower in my pelvis. Like, it was so painful. And Matt probably said, I lost count, but he said, just sit down and relax like so many times, because we didn't want me to start labor because we live probably about an hour from the hospital, and like I said, the roads were not safe to drive on. That's just for us to get to the hospital. We would still have to get Matt's mom to come watch Benjamin, and that is another 20-30 minute drive in the opposite direction. So yeah, we were pretty nervous that week. So my 38-week appointment actually got rescheduled, I think like 4 times during that. Finally went in on Thursday because Wednesday, the office where my doctor is actually had to close. They didn't have water at their facility. So on Thursday, I had to go to the facility across town. So I went and saw my doctor there. He kind of got upset with me a little bit and was trying to push the induction up to Friday instead of Monday because he asked if I had been pricking my finger, and I basically was like, I was, but with the last week of having no electricity, it's not like you can just make whatever. So I did eat some bad things when we had no electricity, and so I just didn't even prick my finger because I knew like my sugar level was going to be too high or whatever. Sometimes you have to eat like cereal or something because there's no electricity to cook eggs and whatever. So yeah, so he was kind of like, I really, if we could push up induction. He made some phone calls because earlier that morning he said that he delivered a baby in the hospital that I had my induction scheduled for. They had no water, and he was like, see if you can get in this other hospital across town. Basically they didn't have any openings and all of that, so we ended up having to wait until Monday for the induction anyways. But back to that appointment. So I basically went to this appointment and had an ultrasound. The last time that I would get to see little Miss Riley before induction on Monday. So 4 days before, everything was good. The ultrasound technician said that the fluids were good. He ended up checking me again, and this time I was 3 centimeters dilated. So obviously all of that nervousness and her getting low and all of that was definitely doing something during the winter storm because I progressed. So at this point I started to actually feel pretty miserable. I ended up losing my mucus plug again because it had regenerated, and I could feel her getting super low again. A lot of times it was just like here and there, but then around this time it was like feeling that pain and like her getting low like 10 times in a matter of 30 minutes. I seriously was so miserable. I was getting lightheaded. I was exhausted on that next day on Friday. I was just so tired. I couldn't keep my eyes open. I ended up being late going to pick Benjamin up from school because I fell asleep and missed my alarm on my phone. So on that Friday night, Matt was up. He decided to play some guitar, kind of hang out and chill. And I was just in bed, just wanted to relax a little bit. Somewhere around midnight, I ended up getting a contraction. Then I just kept having them, and they were getting more consistent and more intense and all of that stuff. So I was like, okay, maybe I'm going into labor, which winter storm was over, school was over, it was a weekend. So I was like, okay, this is fine. Go into labor on my own, and it's the weekend, so it's not that big of a deal. We don't have to worry about picking Benjamin up from school and lunches and all of that stuff right now because it's the weekend. I finally ended up falling asleep about an hour later. Like I said, they were getting more painful, but I finally fell asleep. Then around 5 a.m. or so, I woke up to a super painful one. It was pretty bad. So I rolled over and grabbed my phone because I was going to start timing my contractions, and they stopped. I was so upset because I don't know, I just would be nice to go into labor on your own. That's kind of what happened with Benjamin. But I don't know, it's whatever. That was on Friday night, Saturday morning. And then Saturday and Sunday, I only had like a handful of contractions. It seemed like Monday morning, we got up super duper early, probably around 3:30. We were told to be at the hospital around 5 a.m. Got there around 5 something, and then we're told basically that they were busy with a different project and that we just have to kind of hang out until they were ready for us. But at this point, there was still no hot water at the hospital, so we were kind of, upset about that. At least they had water and you could flush the toilets, but no hot water. But I will say that within a couple of hours of us actually being there, they did actually get hot water, which was nice. Then finally around 6 something, they finally had me sign papers and got blood drawn. I got dressed, up to IVs, and started me on fluids, all that stuff. And finally things were getting going. Got me all hooked up. They took my blood sugar as well, and it was only like 83. So they were like, oh, that's really good. And honestly, that was the last time that they ever really said anything about my sugar. They were then only concerned about her stuff. Finally, they ended up hooking me up to Pitocin. Like I said, at first, they just hooked me up to fluids. They hooked me up to Pitocin and finally checked me, and I was at 4 centimeters, which was nice because that was a whole extra centimeter from my appointment. So I guess those contractions on Friday night, Saturday morning really were doing work. So like I said, they hooked me up to Pitocin, and I was 4 centimeters, and we were basically waiting for my doctor to come by and break my water. So around 8:39 in the morning, my doctor came by to break my water. In my vlog, I just said, that he broke my water, but actually there seemed to be no liquid coming out when my water was broke. I remember with Benjamin, when they broke my water, it was like a gush of fluid just coming out. My doctor this time broke my water and I didn't feel anything. He said that a little bit of liquid came out. The nurse said she didn't see anything and I didn't feel anything. So I'm not really sure what happened there. But he also said that he scraped enough and that he didn't want to do anymore. So we were, I guess, just going to see what was going to happen. So then it was time to just wait for my epidural. I definitely didn't want to wait too long this time around because with Benjamin, I almost missed my opportunity for one. I was trying to be brave, and yeah, I definitely wanted an epidural this time around. But they were doing a C-section at the time, so I needed to wait my turn and they would come when they were done with that. They finally left my room after giving me the epidural, probably around 10:15-ish or something like that. And my legs started to go numb. Everything was great. The nurse said that she would come check on me in about 30 minutes to put my catheter in. So about 30 minutes pass and the nurse comes back to put my catheter in. So she basically leans the bed down, checks me. I think she said I was about a 5 or a 6 at this point. And then she also puts my catheter in and then puts the bed back up. And that is when I start to have problems, basically. I'm assuming that when she leaned the bed back, something happened with the catheter from the epidural because my right leg was numb still, but my left leg had feeling all in it again. So yeah, that was making me nervous a little bit. So I basically called the nurse back in there and told her what happened, and she was like, oh, we just need to put a pillow behind your back so that we can get gravity flowing and so that it can all go to that side and even out a little bit. So we tried that and it didn't work. So we ended up getting the anesthesiologist to come back in, and he basically kind of told me what all options we had, and he said that before we do anything that he'll just give me an extra dose and see what that does. Gives me an extra dose and it did nothing except make my right leg go even more numb. He was saying that if that didn't work, that he could come back in and pull the catheter out a little bit, because he said that sometimes when the catheter goes in, if it goes in too much, it kind of bends and then can kind of go off in the other direction a little bit. So if you pull it out, it's kind of more centered and it will, you know, go both ways or whatever. So that was the other option that we would try if this didn't work. And basically at this point, or somewhere around here, is when I started to feel my contractions. Or I probably was already feeling my contractions, but basically my right side was numb, left side completely normal. So I felt my contractions only on my left side in that specific area. So it was super duper painful. Yeah, it was not fun. Around this time, it was almost 1 o'clock. And my doctor stopped back by, basically was like, you haven't really progressed very much. So he decided to break my water again, or try to. So he broke my water again, or attempted to. Nothing really came out, he said, but this time I did feel some liquid, but I was having to ask Matt, did it fall out into the catheter or did my water break this time? So, I'm not really sure which one. While he was checking me and trying to break my water, he asked the nurse to put in an IUPC. Basically, instead of measuring my contractions on the little thing on top of the stomach, he wanted to put whatever this device is inside my uterus to measure the contractions, so that he could be super specific about how much Pitocin I was getting, since I haven't progressed. So my doctor left and the nurse was about to insert the IUPC, and the anesthesiologist came in. My left leg was still normal and my right one was still numb. So they rolled me over. I was no help at all because I legit couldn't move my one leg. It was like a limp noodle. Anyway, so they rolled me over. The anesthesiologist pulled the little catheter out just a little bit and then retaped everything back up. The anesthesiologist then gave me an extra dose. So now my third dose on the one leg and the first dose on the left leg. But then he left the room, and that's when the nurse went ahead and inserted the IUPC device into my uterus to measure contractions. She put the bed back and my legs started to go numb. Then I guess she started hooking stuff up to the computer. Before that, by the way, she checked me and said I was a 6 and didn't understand why the doctor said I wasn't progressing, because obviously I was at a 6 and when I came in I was at a 4, so she wasn't really sure what all was happening with that. But basically I was at a 6 at this point. She just put the IUPC device and was hooking it up to the computer. While she was hooking up the device, my legs started to go numb, for one, but I was starting to feel like really bad, I guess it was contractions, but like down there, not necessarily in my pelvis or anything, but like, you know, obviously where the baby would come out. So while she's hooking up stuff to the computer, I felt pressure, but it was like a different type of pressure than what I felt with Benjamin. So I wasn't really sure. I could definitely feel like something was coming out, and I told her, and she, I don't think, believed me right away. She was like, oh yeah, that happens sometimes when you feel some really big contractions. I see that you just had a really big one. That's probably all it was. And then the next contraction, it felt the same way. And I was like, yeah, I feel lots of pressure. And she decided to check me. And sure enough, I was at a 10, time to go. And then she looked at the clock and was like, I've only been in here like 30 minutes. Like, how did you go from a 6 to a 10 that fast? Because basically we had been there for hours and I went from a 4 to a 6, and then in a matter of 30 minutes I went from a 6 to a 10. She started getting the bed all taken apart, called my doctor, called Riley's nurse and told the nurse to start getting ready. Then it was time to start pushing. And remember I said I could not feel my legs or my leg. Couldn't feel anything, so they had to tell me when to push. And I felt like I wasn't doing anything because I couldn't feel anything. The nurse had said that it was going to be super fast because she was like right there, but I couldn't feel anything, so I had to be told when to push. So I started pushing and basically tried my best. While I was pushing, they started saying that her heart rate was dropping. Like after a contraction and after I'd push, her heart rate would drop a little bit. And they thought that the cord was wrapped around her neck. So they went ahead and told me not to push anymore until they got the doctor in there. So we waited for the doctor to get in there, and as I was pushing and the nurse could tell that I couldn't feel my legs or anything, she ended up turning my epidural off so that it would quit working. So by the time the doctor actually got into the room, I could actually feel my butt now. So whenever it was time to push, when the doctor was there, I was able to push really good. And I think I only pushed like maybe 2 times while he was actually in the room. They had to use the vacuum, but like hardly at all. She didn't have like a cone head or any of that stuff. So that was good. After pushing for about 30 minutes, she was finally here, born at 2:37 in the afternoon. She weighed 6 pounds, 2 ounces, and was 19 inches long. So basically, she was born, and we're over there looking at her and in awe and all that stuff, and the doctor is delivering the placenta and sewing me up and all that stuff because I did tear a little bit. He's about to leave the room and he says, yeah, it's a good thing that you were here today because God was really with her because there was absolutely no fluid. So that's what he said right before he left the room. So we are very thankful that everything turned out okay and that she is here and safe and everything, because apparently somehow at my doctor's appointment, the ultrasound lady said that fluid levels were great. Then 4 days later, there was absolutely no fluid. So I'm not even sure what happened there. But anyways, I think that is everything for Riley's birth story. I hope I didn't forget anything. This might be kind of a long video because I didn't want to just talk about just the day that she was born, because I was having contractions and I was feeling, you know, certain things for the weeks before. So I wanted to include that in here as well. So yeah, I really hope that you enjoyed watching and listening to Riley's birth story, and I will see you next time. Bye guys.